I love the One Piece trading card game, and I love to spend money on this game efficiently. Buying singles for your deck has always been the most cost-effective way of building a deck, but in this challenge, we throw that all away. Each week, I use a budget of $30 to open sealed product in the hopes of adding new cards to our deck. But since we can only play cards in our color, any cards we can't use, we can trade away. And there are additional buffs locked behind certain challenges. Join me in my journey as I rise up to become the King of the Pirates. You're watching One Piece from Scratch. Welcome back, Pirates, to another episode of One Piece from Scratch, and no, that title is not clickbait. Yes, I know that spoils the whole episode, basically, but I had to, man. We gotta get the clicks into the video, you know, so we gotta work with me here a little bit. So, of course, any seasoned enjoyer of the series could sniff out that that was an off-meta tournament that we're gonna be playing in today. We did just reset the leaders, which are considered meta, so a lot of the leaders came off the list and became playable again. But that being said, I think some leaders, in my opinion at least, should have been banned that weren't, but they'll make their way onto the ban list as people win with those leaders. One final note before we get into the opening, the Cypher Bounties were both cracks. They should have been mentioned in the episode prior, but I low-key forgot, and that's my bad. Anyways, congrats to this commenter for correctly guessing the bounty, play a character with 2000 counter 10 times. And additionally, congrats to this commenter for correctly guessing the bounty, land double attack 3 times. They were both solved on the episode that they dropped, so I think that just means I gotta make some harder Cypher bounties. Maybe I just gotta give you a little bit less to work with, but we'll figure that out as time goes on. But with that out of the way, let's rip some packs. Alright gamers, we are finishing off the box of 09. We only have 4 packs left in that box, and that is not going to cover the whole $30 budget that we have today. We didn't have anything rolling over from last week's episode, but we still have some PRB. We're going to round out to 2 more packs of PRB, and that's going to send $1 into into next week's episode. So let's do it like, how about that? We're going to go 2 set 9 and then 1 PRB. We actually haven't touched PRB in a while, so it's honestly going to be pretty exciting to revisit that just to see, you know, just get some more meta-relevant cards. Pierre, Sanji, Moria, Usopp, Special Muggy Ball, Vasco Shot, Bello Betty, Killer, Shiryu, Wire, Sakazuki, and we have Jesus Burgess. Alright. Coming into pack 2. Again, I think we pulled the majority of the good hits out of the box. We did get our Altart and our secret rare, so really we're just hoping for like an SR that we can throw into the trade binder. We've got Robin, Teach, Partisan, Sabo. There is the Limb. Your character cards are played rested. Activate main, you may trash 3 cards. Activate main, once per turn you may rest 3 of your Dawn cards, add 1 card from your Dawn deck and set it as and rest it. Then play up to 1 Odyssey card with a cost of 5 or less from your hand. Interesting. This is something that we can consider for off meta, so that's pretty cool at the very least. But yeah, we finally have every leader from OP09. We have My Era Begins, as well as a Professor Clover. Now we're back to PRB, and at least we are guaranteed SRs as well as Dawn. So, yeah, I kind of forgot how exciting that is. Vinsmoke, Yonji, Dellinger, we'll go over here. Dellinger, Blast Breath, Ice Age, Wiper, Momonosuke, and we have the 10-drop Doflamingo, pretty cool. And we have Judgment of Hell, Jolly Roger, and Raizo. I was like, wait, I kind of don't remember the composition of this pack anymore. Rare, SR, 2 Jolly Rogers, and we have the Eustace Captain Kid Dawn. All right, pack number 4. We are back to set 9 for 2 packs, and then PRB to round it out. We've got Morley, Usopp, Sachi Penguin, Oliva, Usopp, Jinbei, Black Vortex, Kuma, Crocodile, Wire, Lafette, and Sakazuki. I think that was the second one in this episode. Yeah, right there. Number 5. Hopefully we can end OP09 with an SR. Otherwise, the set 9 portion of this opening was more underwhelming. We got Jozu, Odin, Brook, Rockstar, Lightning, Izo, Chopper, Lucky Roo, and that's a blocker on KO, up to one of your opponent's characters. On KO, if your leader is red hair, KO one of your opponent's characters with a cost of base 6,000 power. And Koala, what is this? Blocker on play, add one card from the top or bottom of your life card to your hand, play one Rev Army with a cost of 4 from your hand, and if you do, draw one card. Interesting. Okay, we did get an SR, so at least we got something from the set 9, the last bit of the set 9, really held out for us. And back to PRB. We've got Guard Point, Law, Pilaf, Otama, Luffy, the 4-drop Marco, 9-drop Kaido. Pretty cool card if we do revisit a purple strategy. Definitely going to be pretty nice there. We have the Bedge as well as Don Quixote family with the Iceberg Dawn to finish out the episode. Pretty cool. Yeah, honestly, probably not a whole lot of value here, but it was just rounding out some boxes, so yeah. Alright gamers, an unfortunate ally has arrived. We are back onto the Sakazuki, the black starter deck. I think it was 6 Sakazuki. Again, this is an off meta, so we're not really hoping to like take it home or anything. We're just playing a leader that we can get some bounty rewards on. A 5-life black leader that is typed Navy. Those are the only things that really matter about this leader. We've gone over the leader effect once already, so I'm not going to go over it again. Just know that it is basically a vanilla leader. The leader effect is super trash. But yep, the build is going to be looking a whole lot similar to Smoker. It is a little bit uninspired. We will be visiting a non-black leader for an off meta at some point, but we are still accumulating some commons and uncommons for a little bit of a head start into that next deck. So yeah, we don't really have to go over the cards all too much since we know what they do and generally understand why we're running them in these ratios. Sengoku, he does work if your leader is typed Navy, so he still works. So that's really good. We have that going for us. We do play, of course, brand new to search all of our Navy stuff. We are basically just playing Jack Turbo, so we did throw in the second copy of Helmeppo and 2 copies of Hina. I still have Kobe in there just in case we do need the 3, in case that threshold does come up off of like a Moria play, Moria into Rebecca Helmeppo Kobe, just in case that we need to get there. But yeah, I don't want to cut Kobe just yet. If I did cut Kobe, it would be for some more Admirals. I do have 2 Borsellino, 2 Kuzan. I kind of want to lean more into these, but when I was thinking about it, I was like, maybe not. But really, we're just kind of stalling to get to our Jack turns, and I think a lot of our value is going to be coming from our Jacks with value-based or cost-based Morias, Helmeppo, Hina again. We do still have 1 Isho in there. I think that Isho will cook a lot of the off-meta decks that really like to have a whole lot of cards in hand, so being able to just rip 2 out of hand, and on top of that give a global -3 will help Jack out and just help our strategy out in general. Our 2K lineup is pretty much unchanged from Smoker. Suru, Tashigi both at 4, and T-Bone. And since we are running Smoker, of course we have the Ice Age, but we also have the Navy HQ. We do get the extra effect of Navy HQ to rest it to give -1. Also, I didn't want to like completely brick on Ice Ages, so at least Navy HQ is something that will keep on recurring. And then for our non-Navy stuff, again, pretty standard. Brook at 3 copies. We only have 3 copies. If I had the 4th, I would definitely play it over the second Kobe. For Rebecca, 2 Sabo this time, which is a little bit different. We usually run that at 1 in our Smoker. 3 Jack. I was considering the 4th Jack, but just the fact that it doesn't have counter is kind of rough. And we're running out of space. We'll just throw it here. The Gecko Moria.
Alright, I'll let you take a picture.
Time to play the game.
Coming into game 1, we are versus Green Yellow Yamato, and right off the bat, if you see the Dawn sleeves, we did change them up. This was an opening that was supposed to be in the next episode, but I got a little bit mixed up, so they are being featured a little bit early. So yeah, we'll just call that a sneak peek for now. Our opponent is going to start off with a 3 Dawn on Yamato and swing, and unfortunately I don't have a whole lot of counter in hand. I had stage as well as the event in hand with a Moria, so unfortunately we are going to take the double attack here, turning our our opponent's leader effect online throughout the rest of the game. And just as a general note, if you are going against Yamato, I don't think you should really fear taking that first double attack early, especially if you don't have the resources to get out of it. I think you should think of it like if you were going to take any other swing, it's going to be resources out of my hand, and do I want to keep the resources in my hand, or do I want to use them as counter here? So if you're thinking that, yeah, you've got a lot of gas in your hand, then maybe you should just take the double attack and not spend a whole lot of resources trying to get out just because it is a double attack and that is 2 cards coming out of your life. So since we did see the search for Okiku very early on, we do know that that is going to be a no counter in hand, and we do know get a feeling that they're on a very Wano-centric package, and we do see the Momonosuke here to put that, I think it was a Hiyori, into life. That does have a trigger to play it, and then I think the on play is to give your leader 1k for the turn, so it can activate on our opponent's turn to make our opponent's leader a 6k for that turn. I actually have been seeing some Yamato lists popping up as of late in terms of just normal meta tournaments, and I think they are going very aggro. I think I've seen like this new green, I think it was the cat, that has rush, and then of course you're green so you have access to Hody Jones, you're green so you have access to like Doflamingo, so I think that Yamato actually has a very decent spot in today's meta. Looking at the board state, we are going to clear that last Momonosuke blocker, and we still have a huge board of our own, so we are super ahead on tempo, so we're just going to use the rest of these swings, go into life, and hopefully whittle down some cards in hand or cards in life. We still are sitting at 3 life, so we are not really in any sort of danger even if we do get hit with a double attack, so I am going to establish this Sabo, but not as a blocker, more or less just as a means to have another body on the field, and we do get hit with the 10-drop Doflamingo, so that is going to block down some of my bigger bodies, but once we come back to my turn, it shouldn't be too much of a struggle to go for game. We still have a few open bodies left, so we're going to start swinging and put the rest of the Dawn on the Sabo, and that should be GG. Coming into round 2, we are versus Boa, and Boa is another deck that I think has a pretty solid place in today's meta, even outside of the off-meta tournament that we're in right now. She does have access to a lot of the Warlord package, so she'll have a lot of good cards in her arsenal, and on top of that, she will be able to draw cards. Doflamingo is a deck where you want to spam as many bodies on the field as possible to get a whole lot of tempo that way, whereas Boa plays a little bit more of a slower game using a lot of the removal events like the Red Rock, for example, and then the 7-drop event to remove 2 bodies, and plays a lot more of these removal events to be able to draw cards and then get advantage that way. Our game plan is pretty much going to be the same as if we were playing Smoker into Doflamingo. I'm just going to be swinging into his board, trying to drain cards from their hand while we are trying to establish a board of our own. Now, I did mention that they are going to be removing a lot of our bodies, so we're going to be a little bit slower in terms of trying to get bodies on our side of the field. So like right here, we did get hit with the Gravity Blade Raging Tiger. We do get our whole board cleared, but we're still trying to drain the hand. That's really what we're trying to do. Drain the hand, drain the resources. Even though Boa can draw, we're going to still try and get to a point where we're going to be out-tempoing our opponent because they just don't have a whole lot of cards in hand. That being said, we really need to find Moria, so we're going to be using that Sengoku to be able to trash some cards and then try and find that Moria. I think this matchup is going to depend on us finding Moria because they're going to be wanting to remove a lot of our bigger bodies, especially that Moria. We just got Red Rocked here, but we can still produce a lot of advantage by the bodies that we play off of Moria and trying to use those to be clearing some of our opponent's bodies. Looking at the board, we're at 1 life versus our opponent's 4, so we're going to start to try and whittle some of that down. But we do need to establish a blocker or take down that Boa because that is going to put us into lethal range. So we do establish the Rebecca into brand new here, trying to get a little bit extra counter, and then play the Sabo to get another blocker on the field as well as try and cycle through a few more cards, get a few dead cards out of hand. And our opponent's Red Rock into our Sabo feels pretty good here since they're spending 6 Dawn on our 5 Dawn body, and additionally that does mean that they're going to be producing a little bit less aggression here with their swings. Our opponent has been getting a whole lot of advantage just being able to have an 8k swing through the Boa character every turn, so this is going to be a pretty high priority target to remove. If we can remove this Boa, then I'm pretty sure we're going to have a really good time into the rest of the game. So I am going to use the Ice Age and 2 Moria, Rebecca, and 2 Brook to be able to remove it, so now our opponent does not have a huge body trying to threaten our board every turn. We are going to get hit with another Gravity Blade Raging Tiger, and that one especially hurt being able to remove our Rebecca as well as our Brook, because that means that those are going to be resources that we cannot recur with our Gecko Moria anymore, since they are being put back into the deck instead of back into our trash. And since our opponent has a lot of blockers and we have a lot of cards on our field, or a lot of bodies on our field, they probably want to be protecting their life a little bit more, so I'm just going to commit a whole lot of swings into my opponent's board, and then they're going to give us a lot of their blockers. We get hit with a Red Rock again, and that's going to be another Moria off of our side of the field, which feels really bad since that's going to be another big body off of our side. But oh my gosh, we are going to use the leader effect here. We're going to use the Hina to reduce the Law by 1 cost, and then trash the Ice Age to be able to KO the Law, put a little bit more pressure on our opponent, as well as establish that Hina. Our win condition from here is just trying to get our board as wide as possible going into our opponent's next turn, and then hopefully they're not going to be playing a whole lot of blockers. So we did play that Tashigi down on our side of the field, and then they do play 2 blockers, so we're going to have to try and navigate through 2 blockers to go for game. But you're never going to believe this, we do use leader effect again to be able to trash that Hina that we just got added to hand to be able to blow up that Doflamingo, and then we're just going to swing wide, and that's going to be GG. Coming into round 3, it is going to be versus Black-Purple Luffy, and this was one of the decks that I wanted to play. If I didn't play Sakazuki for this tournament, this is going to be the deck that I was going to play. But what ultimately held me back from playing this deck over the Sakazuki was the fact that I didn't have a whole lot of purple top end to go into, and this is a deck that really wants to thrive with the purple top end. What I love about this deck is that this deck can play the 5-cost Black Sanji from starter deck 14, because the leader effect can give a Dawn to all of your characters, so Sanji can count himself as a 6-cost, so he plays himself and then go blow up a 5-cost or less. I'm going to have a really dominant start here. I'm going to start with the Helmeppo onto the Frankie, and then swing the Brook into life, and then KOing the Frankie. So we're already really ahead on tempo. We've got a blocker as well as a few bodies established on our side of the field. Coming back to the opponent's turn, he is going to start his turn by playing that 7-cost Sanji, being able to rest our Rebecca, and then he is going to be swinging into our Brook. And here's a little bit of an interesting play. I am going to counter out with 2 1Ks, but that's mainly to get that Sengoku in the trash, because I know that when it comes back to my turn, I do have Moria in hand. So even though it went down with the Sanji swing into it, I am totally fine with that, because that play was mainly to just get Sengoku out. And we don't really have a lot of means to remove some of his body, so we are just going to go for a value-based Moria. Kuzan first into Sengoku, just in case we draw something off of Kuzan that's Navy that we don't really want. We can trash it with Sengoku and draw 3 new cards. And then coming back to my turn, I do see that my opponent has 1 Dawn up, so here's a really good way to punish any purple Straw Hat based strategy. So you're just going to want to swing and only demand 1K counter at a time, because then your opponent's going to have to think about whether or not they want to give up that Gum Gum Giant for the 4K counter to be able to draw 2 cards, so it's not giving your opponent a lot more value with their counters. So I was swinging 7, 7, 7 into that Sanji, and then another important note, I did use the Kuzan effect to reduce the Sanji. This is important, since if he does let the Sanji go, then that's perfectly fine, then the cost reduced didn't really matter. But if he didn't let the Sanji go, which was what happened, then I can use the stage into Rebecca Brook to be able to KO it. Another really nice thing about this board setup right here, we do have a Rebecca going into our opponent's turn where he has a Bond Clay, so whatever he swings at, copying the Gecko Moria, I can just block, which was perfect. That's what we did here, but I did end up giving that Kuzan away from the leader swing. Then here comes Jack again. Navy HQ plus Jack is going to be hitting 4, as 4 is just a magical number in the meta right now. Even in an off-meta kind of tournament, if we're seeing any sort of Warlords package, or again, even here with the Bond Clay, we're going to be able to pop that, so we're going to get a whole lot of good value with that Jack. And again, we are going to swing some low numbers, stay a little bit lower to the ground, try and demand as much counter as we can. That's not going to be the Gum Gum Giant, because as soon as they activate that, they're going to be able to cycle, so we're going to swing that Moria last, because we know that that's going to get used there. As soon as we see the 9-cost Kaido, it's almost like a sigh of relief, knowing that we're not going to see a whole lot of blockers and try and get through a whole lot of blockers, and we're not going to see that 10-cost Luffy that gives our opponent another turn. Once it comes back to us, we don't see any defense on our opponent's side of the field, so we're just going to start swinging, and a big swing with Jack, and that is going to be GG. Coming into round 4, we are versus Purple Yellow Croc, and right off the back I ripped 2 Sengokus in hand, but honestly the first one was so good that I didn't think that I needed to do the second one. I did draw the stage, as you saw, this is the last card there, but I chose to hold it in hand just in case it's on play to give an additional -1 does come up, and it actually does right here, so we are going to play it -1, activate effect, -1, and then we are going to play Brook from hand to be able to -1 and KO. Now Croc is a really interesting leader that saw a little bit of a resurgence when EB first came out, since you did have stuff like the Bond Clay as well as the Oh Come My Way event. So in case you don't know what this leader does, let's read it off. On your opponent's turn, once per turn, when a Dawn card on your field is returned to your Dawn deck by effect, add 1 Dawn card from your Dawn deck and set it as active. There's also a really interesting card that this deck got from EB01, Oh Come My Way, which basically turns any of your characters into a blocker, which is really cool in tandem with a card like Kikunojo, which on KO will let you heal a life, so basically you just make it the target of the attack, and then you can just heal. Here's a really cool interaction where stage actually matters, so we're going to use stage into Helmeppo and Brook to be able to KO a 5-cost Kidatsu. So again, I think that just the extra reach of stage is really cool. In a typical list for like Smoker, I don't think it's really warranted. I think you do want to just go with the Ice Ages, but for something off meta, I think this is a pretty cool just to have a -1 constantly. I think I'm going to approach this matchup like I do with typically when I play Smoker, where we're just going to try and go at the board with our characters, but still trying to develop a board of our own. And we do see the Okama Way get used onto the Kikunojo, so that gets KO'd and our opponent is able to heal a life. I actually don't really mind seeing that interaction, since that means we're going to have a higher board presence compared to our opponent, and as long as we find a turn where we have a whole lot of big at top end bodies to be able to clear our opponent's life, I really don't mind that they healed 1 there. And honestly, I think if they didn't use Oh Come My Way onto that Kikunojo, then I probably would have just swung into it anyways, just so our opponent isn't continuously getting a 6k swing into our life every turn. Our opponent does drop the 8-drop Croc, so they are going to be able to heal 1. And they're going to have a pretty big body, but we're just going to respond with an Ice Age right into that Jack effect to be able to KO it. And it kind of speaks to how good Jack is, as well as just, you know, Black in general, especially the Ice Age. I think that if I were to hit anything on the ban list coming up, I would definitely hit Ice Age. I think that that card just did not age really well. Or in terms of balancing, obviously the card aged like gold, since you're able to just 1 Dawn -5, that is such a huge minus attached to 1 card. We are stacking a whole lot of advantage, and our opponent doesn't see a way out, so they concede, and that's GG.
There's a manga. I'm gonna get 2 mangas. Yeah, I got the manga.
No red back. So sad. Oh, leader. No, I think I have everything from this.
Oh, it's a Rayleigh.
Nah.
I was legitimately all I really want from this side.
Final round of the night, and it is versus Lance, and he is on Moria. Moria was his main deck for the longest time, especially when OPTCG came out, and I did dabble a little bit into Moria, so I am very familiar with this strategy. Obviously, he would have liked to have found a Perona off of the leader effect here, but we see the Helmeppo and Brook, so he is getting really set up onto his graveyard, but unfortunately he's not going to be able to rip a card out of my hand, but he did get that brand new off my board, so that's not exactly like the biggest body off the board, but it is still a body that I could have attached a little bit of Dawn investment to and start swinging with it. I actually don't have a whole lot going on during my turn, but I am able to play this brand new as well as the Sengoku to not only search for cards, add cards to hand, but also set up our trash for later Moria turn, so it's going to be really important that we find the Moria, especially late game. And we do see on our opponent's turn that he is going to trash the Perona for the leader effect, so he can play it and make us rip a card. And unfortunately, we do have to give him a 2k. I really like a lot of the other cards in my hand, and I want to keep them in hand, so the 2k was the only thing I could give him, but that gives him a whole lot of information that, yeah, I do have a lot of good other cards in hand. I am going to pick up a whole lot of tempo here. We did swing into the Absalom, which he let go, and then I did KO the Perona, so we are going to slowly chip away at his board and pick up pace. We do see that our opponent is going to put a Hog back into grave just in case he wants to play that Hog back to grab an 8-cost Moria back to hand, but he does use the Helmeppo into Absalom to be able to KO our Rebecca. He's also picking off a whole lot of our smaller bodies, which does really hurt because, kind of like Doflamingo, Moria is able to put out a lot of bodies, not from hand, but from trash. So we kind of really want those bodies to stick just to be able to swing into our opponent's board and keep pace by swinging that way. We do see the golden combo of stage with Jack. That does mean we're going to be KOing a lot of 4 costs, and Gecko Moria is really going to just be pulling those 4 costs from his leader effect. So as long as we can get that Jack to stay, we are going to be able to KO basically anything that he tries to pull out. Let's not discount the fact that Jack is also going to let us set up our graveyard in case we don't have any other pieces in there, since we can draw and discard, and the draw does mean we can try and find some top end that we can't search with stuff like brand new, so hopefully drawing into stuff like Morias. And let's do some board clearing. We're going to use the Jack to be able to KO the Brook so it doesn't recur any additional value. We're going to HQ the brand new. It seems kind of weird, but we don't actually have a whole lot to cost reduction, so we are just going to go into the Brook afterwards and KO that brand new. Kind of similar to how we want kind of smaller bodies just to be able to retaliate against our opponent's bodies. Our opponent also kind of wants some smaller bodies to retaliate into our smaller bodies to try and pick them off, because it's a little harder to give counter for such small bodies. We do see our opponent is going to use that leader effect, which we honestly do feel pretty good about, because that means they're not going to establish another Moria and get a lot of value that way. So I honestly do not mind this, but we do see the Hogback come out, and we do see a Moria added to hand. Now that is going to be a power card if they are going to play it, but then we also do have information that they have 0 counter on attached to one of their cards in hand. I do have to try and go after this Moria as best as I can, because I am at 1 life compared to their 3. If we kept it on board, it's going to be super easy for them to go for game. I actually have a lot of cards in hand, so I'm actually not fearing being KO'd this turn, especially because we did remove that Moria, so they are going to commit every swing they can into life, but I am able to counter out of it. So when it comes back to me, it's just a matter of math. Again, we do know that one of their cards in hand is going to be that Moria, and I actually do overcommit a little bit of Dawn on that brand new swing, but we do have enough Dawn to get us there, so we're just going to attach the rest of the Dawn, swing with our Moria for our first locals win.
My first locals win is on Sakazuki.
I couldn't find like an
That's
Ice Age or
so
anything.
crazy.
3 life gain off the
3
Chosen
winner packs.
combo. The fact that I got.
Is Kaya in this one? Don't matter.
Who you got?
The worst one, probably.
Yeah. Oh,
Man, I wish,
pudding is the money.
I miss
Pudding!
Used to run him.
There you go. Max will be jelly.
Is Max looking for him?
Yeah.
Uh-oh. And an ace. If I could get it out.
And a winner ace. Solid.
So we ended the day at 5-0, achieving our first locals win and pushing our overall record to 42-23. Obviously very excited to hit a huge milestone for the series, and of course that comes with a few bounty reward spoils. I contribute today's success to a few things. First, I think I was playing at some of my best. I really was on top of remembering what cards my opponent had in hand and finding ways around them. Second, I think I just saw all the pieces I needed to when I needed to, especially when it comes to pivotal turns where I needed the extra reach of the stage to clear a body. And of course, finally, as I've said many times before, we were playing a black 5-life leader with the navy tag. With black being as dominant of a color as it is for as long as it was, it just really is no surprise that there were 2 black decks in the finals. That's a conversation for another day. For now, we'll just take home this dub and gear up for our next challenge. Thank you so much for watching. If you like the content, drop a like and sub to the channel. The more subscribers we get, the closer we inch to the big sub bounty. And speaking of bounties, don't forget to leave a comment suggesting your new bounty. New waves of bounties drop every 5 episodes. And while you're down there, let me know your thoughts on today's episode. Until next time, drink your water, pass out love, hugs, kisses, mwah.